What's up, everybody? My name is Jacob, and man, I'm so glad that you are students today. We're kicking off a brand new series called Radical. Radical is all about how do we live a radical life for Christ. And let me first explain to you what the word radical means. Maybe none of you have heard it before, or maybe you've heard it in a negative light. But decades ago in the late 1900s, radical was used to describe something that was really cool or something that was different. And today, maybe you've heard it in the setting of someone's radical politically, or they're radical in their spirituality, or whatever it might be. But before you make any assumptions about the word radical, I know what you're thinking. That's a silly word. Why would anybody say that? You all say some of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life. I literally had someone tell me the other day, it's easier to say that's cap instead of that's a lie. And I don't understand where this stuff comes from. Clearly I'm getting old or something, but it's ridiculous some of the things you guys come up with. So just think about that before you make a judgment on us using the word radical. And I'll stop there about your vocabulary because I've got a lot more thoughts and opinions about it. But we'll dig back into this. So back to radical. Like I said, maybe you've heard it in a negative connotation, but we want to talk about Christ. And we want to talk about the way that Christ was radical in the way that he loved people. He did things so differently than anybody who had come before him, anyone who's even come after him, that people thought that something was wrong with him. They thought he was radical in a bad way, but he was radical in the absolute best way. So this week, the way we're kicking off the series, we're talking about how we communicate. We're talking about the way that we listen primarily, and we'll get into a couple other things as well. And I want to kick us off by inviting us to look at the book of James. And James was Jesus's brother, so he got to hear a ton from Jesus about just ways to live, and he got to witness a lot of it firsthand. And in James chapter 1, let me read this for us. It says, "My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires." Before we go any further, I've got a few questions I want to ask you. Have you ever felt like people just weren't listening to you? Have you ever felt like you maybe upset somebody because you weren't listening to them? Have you ever said anything out of anger or frustration that you wish you wouldn't have said? I was thinking through some of these questions myself and came up with a couple of things that I remember from when I was a little bit younger about times that I struggled to listen. And so there was one time in particular, I had a friend over at my house, and we were hanging out, playing Xbox, and he got a text from one of our other friends and said, "Hey, why don't you guys come over to my house?" And it was like 10 o'clock at night, so it was a little late, so I knew it was going to be a stretch if I asked my mom, but I thought, whatever, I'll ask her anyways. So I went upstairs, my mom was up there, I said, "Hey, we really want to go to our friend's house. Do you care if we leave? We'll be back by midnight." She said, "No, you're not leaving, you're going to stay here." I said, "Okay, sounds good." So I went downstairs, told my friend the news, and he said, we can't be content with that answer. You got to go back. Ask her again. So I went back. I'm not kidding. I probably asked her like 5 times if we could leave. She said no every single time. So I did what every smart sophomore or junior in high school does. And I decided I'll wait until my parents go to bed, and then I'm going to leave. So me and my friend were in the basement still hanging out. I go upstairs and I check and I make sure all the lights are off. I know my mom is sleeping, the dog's asleep, everybody's asleep. It's a perfect time for us to leave. So I had never snuck out of the house before, and my friend apparently had some experience with this, so he was giving me some tips. So here's what we did. We went to the backyard and we slid open the door nice and quiet. We had a sliding glass door that made a ton of noise, so we slid that open real slow. We went to the door that actually went outside, and then we opened that and realized that it was so loud. The door was creaky, and I was afraid I was going to wake my mom. So we decided to take this little table that we had and prop the door all the way open so it didn't make any noise. So at this point, we're thinking we're in the clear. We haven't woken her up. So we walk around to the front of the house, and I had this aha moment. My car's going to start, and it's pretty loud. So maybe we should push my car into the road, and then we'll start it in the road and drive off. So that's exactly what we did. We moved my car, we pushed it down the driveway into the street, started it in the street, so it was a little bit further from my house. And guys, I'm not kidding. By the time we pulled out of the neighborhood, I was getting phone calls from my mom. But here's the thing that happened. I, for whatever reason, gave my phone to my friend. So he looked at my phone and saw that my mom was calling, and he just ignored it. So we drove all the way to my friend's house. We hung out there for a little bit. And then finally we get in my car and I say, like, "Have you seen my phone anywhere? I just want to make sure we're in the clear." I look, I've got like 10 missed calls from my mom. I've got texts asking her where I was going to be and or when I was coming home and where I was, and I knew I was in trouble. So me and my friend on our way home, we were coming up with every scenario you can think of to try to get out of this, and we didn't. We weren't able to get out of it, and the results of that, I lost my car for a while, I was grounded, and my friend never came over again. That was the last time he came to my house. I just didn't listen to my mom. I was a knucklehead. But then there was another time as I was thinking about these questions that I wasn't listened to. And as I wasn't a very good student, I got in a lot of trouble, and there was one time the vice principal called me into his office and he said, you are that guy. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard that saying, don't be that guy. I was the person they're describing. He said, you'll never do anything to get yourself in actual trouble. You'll just do enough to annoy everybody. And that's what I did. I never got in a ton of trouble, but I frustrated a lot of people with the way that I was. So needless to say, I didn't do very good in school. I wasn't the best student. I didn't try very hard. I passed high school barely, and it just wasn't great. So one time my parents sat down with me, my mom and stepdad, and they said, hey, we want to challenge you to make honor roll. We know you're smart enough. We know you can do it. And I said, okay. I wanted to prove to them that I hear their voice, I value their thoughts, and that I could do it because they knew I could. So lo and behold, and literally for me, just to make honor roll, I just had to do my homework and turn it in on time. That's the only thing I didn't do. I didn't do my homework. I always turn it in late. So I did my homework on time. I turned it in on time. And sure enough, I got like a 3.2. I made honor roll for that semester. So I remember coming home with my report card. I was so excited. Couldn't wait for them to get home so I could show them. So I sat them down at the kitchen table, slid it across the table, so proud. They look at it and said, well, we think you can do better than this. And I remember in that moment being absolutely crushed. I wanted to show them that I cared about them. I wanted to show them that I valued their opinions. I wanted to show them that I wanted to honor them by working hard, and they didn't hear that. They heard that I was as smart as they thought I was, but I'm actually smarter than that. And they challenged me to continue to get better and do better. But for me, that doesn't always motivate me. I needed to be motivated or validated in that moment right then by them just recognizing that, you tried really hard and we're so proud of you. That's what I wanted to hear from them. I wanted to know that they were proud of me. And so maybe you felt similarly in your life. Maybe you felt like someone hasn't really heard you. Maybe you feel like you just want someone to understand you. And I just want you to know that there's someone who does. His name's Jesus, and we're gonna talk more about him. But James challenges us in this passage of scripture to be quick to listen, to be slow to speak, and to be slow to be angry. And these are things that I know for me, I screw these up all the time. I'm not good at any of these things. But I know some of you are. Some of you are great at this. I know for me, if we were to switch this around, that's James 1:19, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to be angry. Jacob 1:19 says, be slow to listen, quick to speak, and always be angry. That's just the way that I have been most of my life. And so how do we do this? How do we communicate well? How do we listen and allow the way that we listen to really transform our relationships with other people, to show them that God loves them and God cares about them? And so for some of us, when someone comes to us and they're talking to us, for me, I'm a chronic interrupter. I'm always interrupting people. I never let them finish their stories. I'm not very good at being slow to listen. And so for some of us, it's just pausing. It's allowing someone to finish their thought. It's letting them speak all the way through. It's letting them maybe you feel like they've finished their thought, giving them some more time to continue to speak. Be slow to respond, be slow to speak. For me, I don't often think very much before I start talking. I just start talking, which means sometimes I say some really dumb stuff like that's cap, or something silly like that you knuckleheads say. But back to James here. Some of us, we just have to be more wise in the way that we choose to respond. We have to be slower to speak. We got to think through the things that we're going to actually say, and maybe we'll speak something of truth to these people and encourage them in their lives. For some of us, it's slow to be angry, and I know for me, anger is just a knee-jerk reaction. I get mad about everything. And so maybe you feel the same way. Maybe there's not a day that goes by where you don't feel anger. But how do we be slow to anger? We take time. We process what we're hearing. If we start to feel anger welling up within us, maybe we just have to offer a quick prayer to God. Hey, help me with this. I need help. And so that's what James encourages us to do in James 1:19. slow to speak, slow to anger, quick to listen. It's really, really hard, but it's really, really good. So I want you to think about this for just a moment. One of Jesus's best friends betrayed him and betrayed him in a way that led to Jesus's death. Do you think he got mad about that? Nope. He endured it. He loved his friend through it. And the result of that is literally what we get to do right now. His love for us being shown through so many different things, all because he chose to not get angry in that moment. He was patient with it. He was kind with it. He continued to love his friend even through that. And so when we embody the communication style of Jesus, which is literally what James told us to do, our lives can completely change. And if you don't believe me, let me prove it to you. This is Psalm 15. It says this: Lord, who may dwell in your sanctuary? Who may live on your holy hill? He whose walk is blameless and who does what is righteous, who speaks the truth from his heart and has no slander on his tongue, who does his neighbor no wrong and casts no slur on his fellow man, who despises a vile man but honors those who fear the Lord, who keeps his oath even when it hurts, who lends his money without usury and does not accept a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things will never be shaken. So if you think about what we just read in Psalms right there with James, let me connect them for you. Who are the people who are close to God? The people who are slow to speak. The people who take time and listen. The people who get to know those around them so they don't say anything negatively about them. It's so much harder to speak poorly about somebody when you actually take the time to get to know them. Who are the people who are close to God? Those who are quick to listen. Like I just said, the more we get to know people, the harder it is to speak badly about them. That's what the word slander means. It means to speak against somebody. It means to speak in a way that's not uplifting or encouraging to them. And it's so hard to do that when we actually know these people and care about them. Who are the people who are close to God? Those who do what is righteous. Those who avoid anger. Those who live in a way that's honoring to God. Our communication, the way that we speak to other people, and honestly, the way we speak to ourselves can do so much for our relationships with Christ and for other people's relationships with Christ as well. So what I want you to do now is I want you to imagine what your life would be like if you actually took time to live these things out. What would it look like in your family if maybe you were a calming presence because you didn't immediately respond in anger to maybe your parents snapping at you over something silly? Maybe you take the time to hear them and listen to them. Maybe there's something more going on and you can be a person of peace who ministers to them in that moment, who encourages them to love and the good things of God. What would it look like in your school if you stopped people from speaking poorly about other people because you've taken time to actually get to know somebody? So when someone starts, gossiping about so-and-so, you can say like, hey, you don't actually know the situation. I think you should stop right there. What if you were the person who encouraged other people to speak highly of other people, who actually took time to listen, to be slow to speak, to be slow to anger, to be a calming, transformative presence in your school, all because you decide to communicate in a way that radiates the love of Christ. So how do we do this? There's a few things I wrote down for us. Let me share them for you. Number one is listen with your heart. Don't just listen with your ears, listen with your heart. If you listen with your heart, you're oftentimes going to hear a need that someone is actually communicating. Maybe they don't even know they're communicating it, but you can pick up on it because you're listening with your heart. You're listening with the intent to care for this person. Number two, listen with your mind. It's so easy to get distracted when someone else is talking, but tune in. Really dial in and lock in on what this person is saying to you. Listen with your mind, give them your full attention. Number three, listen with your body. Here's what I mean. Turn off your phone, take out your ear pods, and actually listen to the person. Be physically present with them. Be so attentive that they know that you're there to hear everything that it is that they have to say. Whatever distraction's in your hand, set it aside, put it in your backpack, whatever you gotta do, and really show this person that you care about them using your body language. And number four, listen with curiosity. And one of the things that you'll find about Christ, whenever he's talking to people, oftentimes his first response to them is a question. He'll respond wanting to know a little bit more. Tell me more about this. Tell me why that made you feel that way. Listen with curiosity. Figure out what it is they're really trying to tell you, and then be slow to speak so you can actually respond in a way that they need you to in that moment. So this week, I want you to practice these things. I want you to maybe find a friend, find a family person, find a principal, find somebody in your circle that you can actually practice this with. Be quick to listen. Be slow to speak. And be slow to get angry, because we know that anger does not produce righteousness. But what does is by pointing people to Christ. And one of the easiest ways we can do that is by actually giving them our full attention, our full minds, and our best thoughts as we respond to them in everything that they do. Hope you guys enjoy your small groups, and we'll see you next week. Take out your earpods, listen to me. Your pear pods. All right.